Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. This will be the last show for a couple of weeks. As you know, you may know, Laura and I will be going off to Italy for a number of reasons, primary of which, paramount of which is Laura's appearance in the Venice Biennale. So I'd like to talk about that trip a little more later on. Usually I do a lot of that stuff at the beginning of the show, but this time I think I'd like to get into tonight's show and then afterwards spend some time talking about what our plans are and, some of the things that I'll be bringing back with me, hopefully, for you, my viewing audience. So tonight's show is going to be the Gardens of Italy. And I won't say it's the Gardens of Italy because it's Gardens of Italy. There's a difference because, I'm not going to be going into every garden in Italy. And certainly I'm not going too close to ones that I've never been to. These are gardens in Italy that we have been to and we have a personal knowledge of, and we have our own pictures. So, I did some research on this, considerable research, and there are gardens all over Italy, and they're magnificent. And we haven't been to a good number of them. However, we've been to many of them, especially the ones that appear in northern Italy, around the lakes region, and in Bolzano and Venice. So, we don't really get into a lot of the other gardens, especially those in the southern part of Italy. So these are the gardens of Italy. And you might be wondering why I'm starting with Cosimo il Vecchio. And this is, once again, last week, I said something which wasn't quite correct. I indicated when we were talking about the Boboli Gardens and the Pitti Palace that Cosimo il Vecchio was the founder of the Medici Bank. And that wasn't quite correct. And again, it's one of those things where as you're saying it, you realize this may not be true. And I went home immediately and researched and found out that the Medici Bank was established before he took over by this fellow. This was his father. And this fellow's name, of course, is Giovanni de' Medici. And he was the founder of the Medici banking empire, and he then passed it off eventually. And we don't know much about Giovanni de' Medici, but we do know an awful lot about Cosimo il Vecchio. Cosimo de' Medici gets the name Il Vecchio simply because there are a lot of Cosimos over the course of the Medici's reign in Florence, and he gets the primary title, and he is the oldest of all of the Cosimos, so therefore he gets the name Cosimo il Vecchio. So he was, passed off from his father to run the banking empire, and then it was passed along through the centuries. Now, as I was going through this, I realized that one of the things I'd like to do on the show, when we come back, of course, I haven't really looked much into it, is to do a show on the Medicis and follow the progress of the family. You could trace the Medici family tree for hundreds of years, and it's very fascinating because each of the Medicis plays such a very prominent role in the history of Florence. So that'll be very interesting. And I'm going to look into that certainly when I'm in Florence, although I pretty much have as much photographs of Florence as I would probably need. And all I would really need to do is do some studying on the history of the Medici family. But that's something that I will definitely do. And everybody finds the Medicis fascinating, of course. So, okay, so here we are with the Gardens of Italy. Gardens of Italy. And the garden you see right there, of course, is one that you may have seen many, many times. This is the garden at the Villa Monastero, which is located in the town of Varenna on Lake Como. But this is where we're going to start tonight's show. And this is a garden from history that does not have much documentation, unfortunately. It was created sometime during the interval of 605 BC to 562 BC, and it was supposedly established by a king that I've read about many, many times, and probably many of you have as well, and I really have a hard time pronouncing this fellow's name. So I'm going to give it a shot. But it's Nebuchadnezzar II. And he was the king of Babylon, and there is no record of an existence of this garden except for what is written by authors during ancient times. There's no cuneiform writing that establishes a hanging garden of Babylon, but there's some evidence, and the evidence that exists describes the garden as looking like this: the hanging gardens of Babylon. So of all the gardens we're going to be speaking about tonight, this is the one garden that probably has the greatest history. This is a shot that was taken by Laura during our visit to Pompeii. And this is what an ancient Roman house probably looked like. I mean, you can't, I have a better picture of it later on. This is what the ruins of the house looks like, as it was covered in volcanic ash for 2,000 years. But a typical Roman house had that garden right in the middle with the atrium, the open ceiling above it for light for the garden and also for watering of the garden. And then there are columns around it, as you could see. And this is, one of the very, very well preserved Italian gardens in ancient Rome. This is really what an ancient Roman house probably looked like. This is a restoration, and there's the atrium in the middle with the gardens all around it and the statues. And Italian gardens are generally known as being very well ordered, and they usually have a neoclassical sculpture, and they also have columns around it. One of the most famous gardens is in a place in the city of Rome known as the House of the Vestal Virgins, located in Rome, and this is what the ruins of that garden look like. I have a recreation of it. This is what it looked like in ancient times that was reconstructed through, records and so on. And, this is where the Vestal Virgins lived. And they were, of course, very young girls who were, I wouldn't say taken from their homes. They were voluntarily given to do this great honor of maintaining the eternal flame of Rome that was kept in the temple of Vesta, right in the Roman Forum. And that's what it looked like then. This is what the ruins look like now. You still see some of the statuary around the periphery, and you still see what the flowers and the interior must have looked like. So that, is not too different from what it now looks like. But here is the Roman Forum, and here is the tabularium here, and the Basilica Aemilia, the Basilica Julia. This is the main part of the Roman Forum, and the Temple of Vesta is right here, and directly behind it is the House of the Vestal Virgins. And they were the keeper of the eternal flame that burned, was supposed to never go out, and if any of them let it go out, there was some kind of horrible punishment that was meted out to them. But this is where they lived, and this is what the House of the Vestal Virgins looks like. This is an overhead shot of Rome that I really love, and this is the Roman Forum right in this area in the middle, and the House of the Vestals would have been right in this vicinity over here. Here is the Basilica of Maxentius and Constantine, and this is where the House of the Vestals would have looked like. This is a modern view of a cloister. It used to be a church. It's now an art school in Viterbo, and I've shown this picture before. And this is a typical view of an interior Roman garden with the columns, and I don't see too much statuary around the side. But here is some history of gardens around the world, and we start with a Japanese garden, which we're all kind of familiar with. But some of the traits of a Japanese garden include water, rocks, and sand, beautiful architecture, bridges, stone lanterns, fences and gates, trees and flowers, and fish in the pond. And I believe the Japanese garden the only one that I'm familiar of is the one in the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. So, I'm getting this thing popping up from the bottom, and I don't know what that is. And I hope that goes away. Do you see that? It's like there's this red thing that keeps popping up. I'm not sure, but we'll just have to try to get through that. So that's a Japanese garden. This is a Chinese garden, and Chinese gardens are usually enclosed by walls with ponds and rocks and trees and flowers, halls and pavilions connected by winding paths and zigzag galleries. And that's a beautiful view of a Chinese garden. These are French gardens, and according to the online sources that I was looking through, the French gardens that you see there are very precise and formal, a high degree of symmetry. There are hedges and lawns and trees and plants meticulously maintained, and the French actually got the idea for their garden from the Italian gardens. So that's very interesting because, frankly, I've never seen an Italian garden myself that well manicured and meticulously symmetrical. However, who am I to argue with the established sources? Then we have the English garden, which is one of my favorites. And of course, when I was in England, I did see this type of garden. And these gardens are usually lush, curvy beds overflowing with fragrant flowers, dotted with evergreens and shrubs, and big trees and benches. And one of the best quotes that I saw on the internet was one of the experts on gardens actually said that to her, it looks like, and I quote, somebody threw a bunch of seeds up in the air and let them grow where they may. And, when you look at it in an English garden, it is the opposite of a French garden in that the French are so precise, and this is anything but precise. And it's kind of like, kind of wild and woolly. So that's the view of an English garden. And now we come to Italian gardens, and we start with, Italian gardens, as I said, are, and this is, the definition that I found on the internet, symmetrical, with fountains, statues, grottos, if you remember from the Boboli Gardens of last week, and water organs. And these are piped organs that are run by hydraulic mechanisms. And Italian gardens have been imitated throughout Europe. And this is the Villa d'Este, which was commissioned in the 17th century by Cardinal Ippolita, who was the son of Lucrezia Borgia and Alfonso d'Este. And this is what the Villa d'Este looked like during the Middle Ages. Oh, no, I remember what this is. Excuse me for one moment. This is not the Villa d'Este. This is Hadrian's Villa. Tivoli is a very, very interesting town. And I thought I gave a view of the Tivoli of the town, but I guess I don't. Okay, well, this is Hadrian's Villa. So to build the Villa d'Este, what they did was they took the marble from Hadrian's Villa and they put it in the Villa d'Este. And that's what occurred a lot during medieval times when a lot of the Roman monuments, the ancient Roman monuments, were taken apart and were transposed into a lot of the medieval buildings, one of which is the Villa d'Este, which is known for its marble and for its amazing fountain. This is another view of Hadrian's garden. Here's the Villa d'Este, and you could see that it's known for its fountains, which was run by hydraulic engineering during the Middle Ages and continued up until the present day. The concept of all of these fountains has been influential in the development of a lot of the European gardens. And there are actually 500 jets of water. This is one of them. This is another of the gardens at the Villa d'Este. It's very beautiful, and Tivoli is located a little north, I would say about 30 minutes northeast of Rome, and it's a very, very nice place to go on a hot summer's day. Let me see if I could increase this so you can get a better view of this. But, I was here back in 2001 or 2002, I don't remember, and this was a really cool place to go on a really hot August afternoon. And it's a very, very beautiful gardens, again, known by its many, many fountains that appear throughout. Here's another view of it, and you can see the water in the middle, the pond in the middle, with the geyser over there on the right side. Okay, now this is the video that I told you about, Ellen. Let me just introduce it for 1 second and say that this is the Hotel Park Lauren in Bolzano, Italy. And Laura and I were here in 2007, and we were photographing the hotel, but we do a lot on the gardens towards the middle of this video. But I just love this video, and I want to play the whole thing starting from scratch. So now I'm ready. Okay, here we go. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
The
All right.
Park Lauren Hotel.
Wait a second.
It'll open. The reception.
Lovely.
Reception. Turn it to the right. Very nice hallway.
That's towards breakfast room.
A lounge and a bar, which is quite beautiful.
Ah, the bar. Yeah. I want to get the frescoes. I don't know if it'll come out.
Let's do the patio.
Yes.
You still on?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this has there's a lovely patio where Laura and I had a cappuccino last night.
Yes.
7. This is the patio area. Let's go towards the pool, which I
Okay.
didn't use because I was too tired to lift my arm to actually swim. Too tired to do anything. It's a little lovely sitting area.
This is where the
Outdoor
restaurant
area.
is.
There's a lovely sitting area over here.
Which way are we
have to
going?
go through these
We'll go
people.
through this.
We're going to have to get through this. Even though it's really embarrassing that we have to do it because we'll not be here again in the near future. Then,
And these gorgeous flowers.
can I speak English
And
so
a
they know
little-
what you're saying?
Playgrounds if you have children.
If you have children, which we don't, we do have large ones, but not small ones. And then there's
And today's Anna's birthday.
at today's Anna's birthday, we called to her to wish her a happy birthday and sang happy birthday.
What is
This is the
red
pool
thing?
area.
This is a sculpture.
This is a sculpture. These are the gardens. The gardens are magnificent. Laura took about 86 pictures here yesterday. And obviously she will someday do a painting that incorporates all of these beautiful things. Just as she will do the lake. Try to with the cadence.
And the
Beautiful
elephant
gardens.
sculpture.
The elephant sculpture. There's little elephants on top of each other.
And there's another sculpture down there I like.
Beautiful.
And then there's a trellis I like.
There's a trellis. Oh, how about that? Take this. This little tunnel over there. That's a very pretty area.
And one of those windows is our room.
One of those windows is our room. Not the one with the
I don't know if it's
balcony.
coming out on the camera.
To get the balcony, you would have to have spent another $100 and get the junior suite. As if we're not paying enough for a balcony. Bastards.
And this is where we sat yesterday on this lovely bench.
Yes, we sat on this bench, and these are the beautiful gardens with a greenhouse. The Hotel Park Lauren in Bolzano. We recommend it highly. All right, so that's a pretty amazing hotel, the Hotel Park Lauren, which had beautiful gardens, and I thought I would start out our experience of gardens with that one. The next garden we come to is the one in Venice at the Pensione Accademia in Venice. So, we're going to be in Venice in about a week, and this is, of course, the evocative picture of Venice that I show a lot. This is the hotel we stay in, the Pensione Accademia. This is the view from the window of the room we usually get, and that's the Grand Canal in the background. But this hotel, one of the reasons people like staying in this hotel is because, Venice is very concrete. There's like a lot of concrete and a lot of tourists, and this is a great place to just kind of relax, and it's a beautiful back garden, as you could see. Very well kept in the back. There are chairs, and people go back here to relax. The gardens of the Pensione Accademia. This is actually the front, the entrance, so there's gardens in the front as well as in the back. Okay, and now we come to the only garden that we have in Tuscany, and it's in the town of, it's actually outside the town of Foligno Valdarno at the Villa La Palagina. And you remember this, I've discussed this a couple of times. This is the Villa Palagina, and these are the beautiful gardens that overlook the hills of Chianti in Tuscany. Foligno Valdarno is where my friend Luca lives, and it's just south of Florence, maybe by about 20 minutes. And you can see the beautiful manicured gardens there with the Chianti hills, the Tuscan hills in the background. And of course, there's beautiful flowers in flower pots throughout, and beautiful paths. And of course, you get this view on a May morning, and this is a nice distant view of what the back gardens look like with the cypress trees and the manicured shrubs there with the hotel in the background. Okay, now Lake Como and Lake Maggiore are really the two locations that I know the best. So we're going to be looking at the Lake Como gardens, and we start out with the Villa Cipresi. And this is not only, it's difficult to get historical information on gardens that have now turned into hotels, because most of the references on the internet have to do with the fact that it's a hotel, and they're not too interested in giving you much background. So this is one of those villas on Lake Como that has turned into a hotel. We do know, however, that Ciprese means cypress, and the Villa Cipresi is named after the cypress trees that are along Lake Como. It was built by the Serpanti family in the 16th century. and it's right outside of the town of Varenna. This is the town of Varenna on Lake Como, and there it is in the distance. You see that building straight ahead with the cypress trees around it. That is the Villa Cipresi. And actually we're taking this picture from the Villa Monastero, which is about, I would say, maybe 300 yards south. So the two gardens are actually right next to each other. But this is the Villa Cipresi, and we've stayed here a few times, and the gardens are magnificent. They're, different levels, which give you magnificent views of all the different aspects of the garden. This is the actual back patio, so you could actually sit here and have a meal and, have the incredible views. This is a view looking from the hotel to the town of Varenna. But the gardens themselves are really beautiful, and people who stay at the hotel get to see the gardens all the time, but people do pay money to get into these gardens. People just spend a lot of their time on Lake Como just visiting the gardens. And you could see that it's a really beautiful, relaxing place to spend a nice afternoon. And of course, when you're in the garden, you have this magnificent view of Lake Como. This is looking to the north on Lake Como. And of course, there's a nice patio area and beautiful vines and flowers all over. There's yours truly sitting on the patio, as I've indicated many times, in my favorite position of just kind of sitting in a chair looking out at the lake and the gardens. And this is what I was looking at. So that's a pretty nice view. That little town you see over there on the other side of the lake is the town of, actually, that I was going to say Bellagio, but it's not really, because that particular town is the town of Pescalo, which is a town just on the other side of the peninsula, and that's on the left side. On the right side, behind that little mound in the front there, is the town of Bellagio. And he has more gardens in the Villa Cipresi. And of course, this is a view of, this is actually, part of the view is the Villa Cipresi Gardens, but the gardens you see right in the center with those very, very large cypress trees are part of the Villa Monastero, which is, again, as I said, a couple of hundred yards to the north of this hotel. And you could see that there's you see that structure right there in the middle is a kind of a loggia, neoclassical loggia. This is the Villa Monastero, and it was actually a 13th century monastery that over the next 200 years was in a state of continuous restoration until it became what it is today. And it is known for its cypress trees and citrus fruit trees, its evergreens, and African palms and yuccas and oleanders. So this is the Villa Monastero, and that's actually a better view of it. That's what the villa looks like in the distance. This is taken from the Villa Cipresi, and that's the town right beyond the Villa Monastero, which is the town of Fiumellata. And this is what the villa looks like. You can see the beautiful flowers with the fountains. And of course, one of my favorite pictures of any of the pictures that Laura has taken in Italy is this particular picture of the villa. Very interesting, of course, fountains and beautiful paths with benches. Again, benches overlooking Lake Como, beautiful trees, fountains with the lake in the background. And that yellow building you see over there in the distance is the Villa Cipresi. So these two villas are actually pretty well linked to each other. Here's the Villa Carlotta. Villa Carlotta was built for a very wealthy Milanese family. The Marquis Giorgio Clerici in the year 1690. It occupies 750,000 square feet, at least the gardens do. In 1843, it was purchased by Princess Mariana of Nassau for a wedding present for her daughter Carlotta, which is where the villa gets its name. So this was a wedding present to her daughter. Pretty nice. And the Villa Carlotta is actually between two towns on the, let me see if I could get this right now, on the western bank of the western branch of Lake Como. This is the town of Cadenabia, which is a very pretty town. So you could either get off the ferry here, or you could get off the ferry at this town, which is the town of Tremezzo. And you could see how beautiful those two towns. You could take your pick. You could either get off here and walk to it, which is a very short walk, or you could get off here and walk to the villa as well. And this villa is known for its really, really spectacular gardens, as you could see. We were here in 2008 with friends of ours, and they have beautiful paths, and there in the picture, in fact, are Linda and Bruce, the two friends, two of our closest friends that we took to this garden. That we had we been here before? I don't think we had been here before. But, very colorful, beautiful time of the year. This was late April of 2008. There's Bruce up on those beautiful steps. Kind of like a Japanese influence I see up there on the top. And just magnificent flowers. And this is the Villa Serbelloni. The Villa Serbelloni is an Italian-style gardens, and it was built for Count Alessandro Serbelloni in the year 1788. It is now owned by the Rockefeller Foundation. It's 50 acres is the total land area of it. And this is the fanciest hotel in Bellagio. And some very famous people have stayed in this hotel, namely Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy, Clark Gable, and Al Pacino, to name just a few of the very famous people who have stayed there. This is Bellagio. That's what it looks like as you approach the dock. And when you get off the ferry, right there at the dock, you walk to the left, and all the way down at the very end is the Villa Serbelloni, and that's what it looks like. And even if you're not a guest, you're certainly welcome to come in and take a look. And, people just, once again, I mean, it's nice looking in the hotel because it's really, it's a very, very fancy and expensive hotel. But people just come here and walk around the gardens. As you could see, very beautiful gardens and walkways. We were here with our friends Luca and Mary, who had driven 7 hours from their town in Foligno Valdarno in Tuscany to be with us on Lake Como in the year, I believe, 2009, but I'm not totally sure of that date. And some more of the beautiful gardens with Lake Como in the background. Beautiful palm trees. And, the view from Serbelloni onto Lake Como. And we're looking now at the town, I think, of Bolzano, which is probably which is not probably, but is definitely a little north of the town of Varenna. Very beautiful gardens, these places are just great places to walk around. That's actually the town, I believe, of Varenna. So this is a slightly different angle, looking directly to the east. Then we have the Villa Balbianello. And the Villa Balbianello was built in the year 1787 by Cardinal Dorimi. It fell into disrepair for the next several hundred years. Its gardens are known as being terrace gardens. It was at one point a convent church, and the towers you see there, and the towers are always very prominent for no matter where you are in this particular vicinity, are the towers of the campanile that were attached to the church, and we'll get some great views of that. This is the town that you have to travel to in order to get to the Villa Balbianello. This is the town of Leno, and Leno is on, again, the western shore, and you get off at the ferry dock and walk to this magnificent villa. This villa in 1974 was bought by the Italian explorer Guido Manzino, who was the first Italian to climb Mount Everest. He was from a wealthy family, and he traveled all over the world. And one of the great things about visiting this villa is that you get a nice guided tour, which shows you a lot of the artifacts that he brought home from his travels, most of which were in Africa and Asia. And there are the campanile of the original church. And once again, it's the gardens are, punctuated by sculptures and trees and paths, many paths, as you could see. So, after you get your tour of the villa, you kind of get the opportunity to walk around the gardens. I remember this tree very well. This was a beautiful tree. And that's a view from the villa looking towards the north, towards the town of Leno on the left side. More gardens. And it's right on this very, very small peninsula. And it's in a beautiful location. This is from the ferry boat. Okay, and now we come to the Lake Maggiore gardens, and we start with the Isola Bella. Now, Lake Maggiore has 3 islands, Isola Bella, Isola Pescatore, and Isola Madre, and we're going to be looking at the 2 islands that actually have villas and gardens attached to them. The second one I mentioned, Isola Pescatore, is really known for its restaurants. Everybody kind of goes to Isola Bella, and they spend the day here, and then they kind of go for lunch at Isola Pescatore and continue in the afternoon at the Isola Madre. So this is an island which is only 1,200 feet by 900 feet, and this villa was built in the 17th century by Carlo III Borromeo. The Borromeo family owned most of Lake Maggiore, and this was built by Carlo III in 1632 for his wife, Isabella Dada, and obviously the name Isola Bella comes from her name, Isabella. And this is where the very well-known picture that I keep showing of the peacock that Laura took, one of Laura's great photographs, with extreme amounts of cooperation from that peacock to open up its feathers to show this beautiful picture. And yeah, you see these peacocks wandering all over the grounds. And we didn't spend much time in the villa itself. We spent most of our time walking around the gardens. So that's what, you know, what I remember most about the Isola Bella, these beautiful gardens. That's a magnificent view looking towards the northeast. And I think this was just before the peacock actually spread its feathers. So this is a really interesting, and of course you see the beautiful gardens. Look at this. And, you know, as I said many times, there's not much to do on, you know, these islands. You just kind of walk around and enjoy the ambiance, and it's just relaxing. No museums, you know, no famous churches, famous art. And then we come to Isola Madre. And Isola Madre started out as a 9th century church that had a cemetery from the 9th century. It was eventually built up by, let me see if I can get this name correct, Carlotta Borromeo, again a member of the Borromeo family. In the year 1590, he really put his mind to creating this beautiful villa with magnificent gardens, and he imported cypress and fruit trees from Liguria. It's built, they said, you know, on the internet, in the English style, although to me it doesn't resemble an English garden at all. That's what the villa looks like as you approach it. The island itself is 600 feet by 1,000 feet, and it's known by its wisteria and subtropical plants and exotic flowers. And it's known mostly for a 200-year-old cypress tree. And this is the stairway. This is probably the most famous part of the island, and that is the famous stairway that was built to commemorate all the people who were buried in the cemetery. That's what I read. And that's, you know, wisteria planted above there. And the structures are absolutely magnificent. That's a picture of Bruce and me right in front of one of these magnificent, I don't even know what you'd call that, to tell you the truth, but it's got sculpture and plants and steeples. That's another view. And I believe that's the tree. So this is the 200-year-old cypress tree. Well, it's actually not a cypress, but the trees are very old on this island. And there's a close-up view of another one of these structures. These are all over the island. And of course, beautiful gardens. And of course, it is known for its beautiful birds. There's a peacock, which did not cooperate, but still pretty beautiful anyway. Those beautiful birds. And of course, beautiful man-made ponds. This, I believe, was some kind of a bathhouse, and people used to sit around, and I even read one place where they indicated that this was a bathing pond. Okay, and then finally we come to the gardens in Stresa. Now, these gardens are actually in the zoo, right next to the zoo, in an area known as the Botanica Alpina. And one of the questions that was indicated to me online was, is this a park or is it a zoo? Because it's indicated as a zoo. It was founded in 1934 on 10 acres of land. And, you know, it is a zoo because there were animals here. But for the most part, we spent most of our time walking around these beautiful gardens. You know, there were animals, and it was fun looking at them. But it's what struck us more than anything else were the beautiful gardens. Look at that beautiful arches. Okay, and that takes us to the end of the garden part. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about the trip that we're taking. Now, this trip has had a very interesting evolution because the trip that we originally planned to go on probably earlier than May 20th. The trip was actually intended to be a trip that we were going to take in early May. And it, of course, changed once Laura was told that she would be appearing in the Venice Biennale. So we kind of moved it up to, to coincide with the openings in Venice. And this particular trip that we're taking will begin in Orvieto. And, whenever I take a trip to Italy, to me, it means a great opportunity to bring back some great material that I could then fashion into shows. And these are some of the shows that I have in mind for some of the places that we will be visiting. And of course, we're going to hook up with our friend Franco Sala, who has promised to take us on a special Franco Sala tour of Orvieto. He, as you may remember, I called the unofficial mayor of Orvieto. He knows everybody in the town, and he's going to take us on a tour, and I'm going to interview many of his friends who own shops throughout the town, and we may even get a cooking demonstration at our favorite restaurant, La Palomba. And then on the way to Florence, the next day we're going to stop for lunch at a really beautiful hill town that I've spent just a few seconds on, really, when I was doing Umbria, Città della Pieve. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we actually go and come back with that information. But we're having lunch at this amazing restaurant called the Trattoria Perugino, which Luca recommended to us. And then, of course, we go to Florence, where we will be interviewing the director of the Florence Synagogue that I set up many months ago. We're going to get a cooking demo, maybe, because it depends upon whether Giuseppe at La Spada is busy or not. He said that May is a very busy time for him. But if you remember from the cooking demonstration that I showed on this program when we came back from the last trip, that was very interesting. So we're going to try to do that. I have an interview with some of the representatives of the Five Star Movement. That's their Occupy Wall Street equivalent that did so well in the recent Italian elections. And then we're taking side trips to Ravenna, to the town of Colli di Valdelsa, which is in Tuscany, where Lydia made a friend of a very well-known Italian artist by the name of Matteo Cocci, and we will be meeting him for his gallery show in Colli and also having lunch with him. And then we're going to Pistoia, where we'll be having lunch at Lydia's house with her family and hopefully getting a tour of Pistoia, plus, whatever else happens in Florence, such as a very, very big party that we're having in Laura's honor in Florence. Venice is devoted, primarily to Laura's opening at the Palazzo Bembo, which I'll discuss more of in just a few moments. But, we also intend to spend time at the Biennale itself, hopefully gaining some interviews with key people, and, of course, another interview with the director of the Venice Synagogue, and maybe some of the people at the Palazzo Bembo itself. And then we're actually going for 2 days to a town that I've never been to, which is Padua, and we're going to be getting a tour of the city. We'll walk around the city, but mainly we're going there to see the Scrovegni Chapel. So that's something that we'll be getting to see at that time. There goes the phone. Is that perchance for me? Okay, and then of course we go to Venice for Laura's opening in the Palazzo Bembo. The name of the exhibition is Personal Structures, and it begins with a preview party on May 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st, between the hours, that's European time, 1800 to 2200, which is 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the evening at the Palazzo. And there is a list of all the artists who will be appearing. And that's what the Palazzo looks like. The exhibition will actually occur on this level. And then we believe this level is where they will be, having some food, hopefully. This is the level of the B&B that we'll be staying in for part of the time that we're there. But, if you make this larger, you could see some of the names of the well-known artists who will be there. There's Laura right there in the middle, Laura Gerton, and some of the other very well-known artists that we've, gotten to know over, at least through the internet. Herman Nietzsche, Yoko Ono will be there in a sound installation. Arnulf Renier is a very, very well-known contemporary artist, and some of the others as well. So that will be our trip to Venice. And then our next show, which will not be until 3 weeks from tonight, will be a show that I put together on famous and beautiful streets and roads in Italy. So that will be the next show, Italian streets. And that concludes our show. I'd like to thank you for watching this evening. It was a pleasure bringing it to you, and we've seen some beautiful gardens. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will be seeing you in 3 weeks. Until then, buonanotte e buona fortuna.